When we lived in Naperville, Illinois, there was a called it the Prairie Path. That's just what they called it there, prairie paths. There were lots of prairie paths, and basically it was just a big green space where the grass and the weeds and the trees and all of that kind of stuff was just kind of encouraged to grow as it did. And this particular prairie path was called Springbrook Prairie Path. And it was one of my favorite places to run when we lived in Illinois, when we lived in Naperville. It was a few miles from our house, and sometimes I would run to there. Actually, often I would run to Springbrook, and then I would run around it, and then I would run home. And I remember one day I was running at Springbrook, and it was just a big loop. And there were places where it was mostly flat, although there were a few hills, and I say hills, nothing like some of the hills that we have around here. But I mean, there were some inclines and some declines, and I remember one particular morning that I was running down a bit of a decline for me, and there was someone coming up the incline, so we were passing each other. I was running down the hill, she was running up the hill, and she looked like she looked like she was struggling. And hills are hard to run up. Even the smallest of hills can be a challenge, and this person looked like she was struggling. And I remember, as we were approaching one another, me going down, her coming up, this phrase popped into my head, and it was hills are for heroes. Hills are for heroes. Hills can be really challenging things to run up. And I didn't say anything to her, and I kind of wish I did. I wish I had said something that was encouraging to her, like, you can make it, almost there, something like that. But hills are really hard. But hills are for heroes. Hills make heroes. It's when we face challenges in our lives that we really find out kind of what we're made of. When life is easy for us, we don't always grow in our faith in the same way that we grow in our faith when life is hard, when things are challenging. Because hills reveal who we are. Hills are hard. Hills are challenging. Hills and challenges are opportunities for us to grow and deepen our faith. In Luke 9, verse 23, Jesus says to the crowd, "If any of you want to be my follower, you must give up your own way and take up your cross daily and follow me." What Jesus is calling the crowd to in this particular instance is a hard life. Take up your cross daily. The only context that they had for a cross when Jesus said this was as a tool of execution. There was no other context for the cross other than you dying. Sometimes we think our cross is maybe the spouse that we've married is a complainer. Sometimes we've lowered the idea of our cross to the fact that there's a train and I have to sit and wait for the train. Like living in Scottsbluff, the train is just my cross to bear. My annoying, nagging spouse is my cross to bear. My job is my cross to bear. My children are my cross to bear. This difficult situation, seemingly difficult situation, is my cross to bear. But what Jesus is talking about here when he says, take up your cross daily and follow me, what Jesus is saying to us is you have to be ready to die. You have to be ready to die to yourself, to your own wishes and wants and desires. You have to be willing to die to those things. Take up your cross and follow me. The pathway to following Jesus is hard. And like that gal, I don't know when that was, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, kind of running up that hill. Like, you got to embrace that challenge. You got to embrace it, because it is not going away. And embrace doesn't mean resolve yourself to it. Embracing the challenges that God puts in our paths that we encounter, we embrace them when we see them as opportunities to grow. We've been talking over the past few weeks, at least when I spoke over the past few weeks, we talked about God's desire for us is to be holy. That's his purpose. That's why Jesus came, to present us to himself holy and clean and ready to enter the kingdom of heaven. And holiness requires refining. Refining means we get rid of all of the things in our lives that separate us from him and make us clean before God. And our challenges and our hardships do that. And we embrace them, not when we're like, oh, my life is so terrible, I absolutely love it. No, we embrace them when we say, man, this is really hard right now, and I know God is with me. And this is making me into the person that he wants me to be. So I'm not going to like it, but I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to accept that what God is doing is ultimately for my good. And this goes back to Jesus' prayer in the garden. If there's any way that this can happen a different way, let's do it. But if not, your will, your way. May we be a people who say, your will, your way. May we be a people who take up our cross and follow Jesus daily. Because following Jesus daily makes us holy. Love you. Praying with you. Praying for you. Talk to you soon.